That's
But
the
you remember
stupidest
when,
part. That's the stupidest part about AI. We were like, yeah, let's let AI make the art and make people work in factories. Motherfucker, what?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of the Bright Now podcast. We're recording this on Saturday, January 27th, 12:27 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Dash, and I am the Breaking Bad to my Better Call Saul, the guy who thinks he's Paul Wall. TJ, how are you doing today, brother, and what are we yapping about?
Hey, still tipping on fofos, you know what I mean? No, today going to be breaking down the Suns very sadly dropping that could not continue their winning streak. That ends at 7 games. So we're going to break down first that Mavs performance, really headlined by Booker going for 46 in that 20-point win over the Dallas. Then going to be talking about last night's loss versus the Pacers that really came down to the wire. Just couldn't get a stop when it felt like we really needed it against them last night. And we're going to touch on some more league-wide news, breaking down the Doc Rivers hire for the Milwaukee Bucks, touching on some of the All-Star game discussions that are going on right now, namely with the alleged snubs on that starting lineup. And then we're going to wrap it up talking about who we think are going to be the most fun playoff matchups in both conferences for that first round. So kicking things off with that Book going for 60 and a 23-point win over the Mavs. Finishes with 73.
For 40.
My bad.
No,
Did he not have? I thought he had. Did I write that down wrong?
you just said 60 right now.
Oh, did I say 60?
He did not have 60 in the Mavs.
Oh,
Yeah.
he did not say. He had 46. My bad. 46, guys. Sorry, don't sue me. So finishes shooting 73% with 7 boards and 3 assists. Really just felt like all mid-range. I know you texted me after. You were like, did he miss one all night? And it really felt like that. It was just kind of a classic game from one of the most creative scorers in the league. Just figures out how to get into his spots. Basically was capped off in that third quarter where he just absolutely exploded for 22 points. He was 9 for 11 in that quarter alone. And the shot chart on that quarter is just like a tween hezzy guy's wet dream. Like it's just 6 mid-range jumpers, hit a couple of threes, had a finish at the rim. And like I said, only 2 misses from the three-point line there as well. Just absolutely possessed in this game. I really feel like he heard some of that all-star buzz going around and decided to just really stamp his case with this game. I mean, honestly, the only bad part is that he just showed himself up a couple of nights later with an even better performance. So what were your thoughts on that Booker game going against the Mavs? I know we really put a little extra stock in the Booker versus Luka matchup, just knowing the intensity that's come around with that. And the way they've kind of embarrassed us in some big moments. So what did it mean for you to see Booker go for 46 and torch this team?
Man, I mean, against this team, I mean, like, let me act like I've been here before, but holy shit, like, I'm just a happy Suns fan at the moment, even with the drop of the loss last night. I mean, this game we could have easily lost. They already beaten us without Kyrie before on Christmas Day, just absolutely embarrassed us. Maybe had some of our guys sit out because, how many games have been played within the short time frame that we've talked about before in the recent podcast, but no. Dallas came out swinging. We took it personal, and we responded by absolutely obliterating them. I mean, I know we want to talk about Devin Booker's MVP performance of the game, but I mean, let's give Jusuf Nurkic some of his credit for just absolutely playing his role. I mean, this game was physical from start to fucking finish. I mean, you saw in that first quarter, we had the little altercation between Grant Williams trying to step over Kevin Durant. Who the fuck does he think he is? That's an absolute goat you're stepping over, sir.
My favorite part of that was, so Nurk shoves Grant Williams, right? And then Grant Williams tries to pop him back, and Nurk with just one arm just like tosses him back away again. And it's like, dude, that guy's a behemoth. Like, you're not getting in his face. Like, I don't know who you think you are, Grant.
That's what I'm saying. And Grant Williams is a big-ass dude, but no, Jusuf Nurkic is the heaviest motherfucker.
A motherfucker named Grant is never pushing Mr. Jusuf Nurkic around, the Bosnian beast. Come on, man. Grant, get out of here.
Grant, we talking Grant Williams? No, but I mean, it was just funny, that specific incident. I mean, you pointed out in your call, and I saw the same thing on Twitter when people were calling Nurkic a dick rider for pushing Williams, but when you're trying to walk over KD, that's what I'm saying. And it exposes so many people's knowledge because, in my opinion, I'm not saying, obviously, I didn't play in the NBA. I played at a low level in college. I didn't play at the highest D1 or even D2. But, like, you understand your role as a player, like a Jusuf Nurkic. I mean, you're the enforcer. You have to be that guy. And that was something that felt like we were missing maybe at the beginning of the season. So maybe that's a sign that chemistry is pointing in the upward direction, because even with Grant Williams' altercation with the last game when he had fucking Booker in like the halfway headlock or whatever happened. It's just really cool to see. And by the way, there's way better reasons and examples as to why, Yusuf Nurkic dick rides Kevin Durant. I mean, you see it all the time, either in games when Nurk is just like running away, like doesn't even try for the offensive rebound when KD's wide open. He's just putting up the three and walking away. Or you see it on Twitter all the time. I just think it's goofy. It shows people's real ball knowledge.
Yeah, and Nurkic is just, I know we keep saying we're not going to talk about this guy anymore, but I just have to bring it up in relation to Ayton, because he's a complete 180-degree turn from Ayton. Obviously, he doesn't have the athleticism or those things that Ayton has, but he has the motor 10 times that of what Ayton has. Ayton would never kind of step into that enforcer role and back up his teammate in that same way. Even if just talking about what Nurkic does on like Twitter and the posts that he sends out, always like really supportive of his teammates, really funny. I just really appreciate those parts of what he brings. Just a great culture guy, and I still love that trade.
Yeah, I absolutely love that trade. The closest thing we've seen DeAndre Ayton do was when he like stepped over Patrick Beverley, the fucking 6'2" scrawny dude in the league. So I mean, hey, I think that's a great point to bring up. But as Devin Booker as a whole, man, you already said it, but he hit every single mid-range jumper. And just listening to the broadcast, I listened to all three different ones. I think it was the TNT crew with Doris Burke. Doris Burke was absolutely jocking Devin Booker. And shout out Doris Burke, one of the biggest ball head knowers in the entire league. She's got interpersonal relationships with everybody, but she was absolutely just raving about Devin Booker. And it was amazing to hear the Suns broadcast. Obviously, our guy Eddie Johnson is just saying, hey, me myself being a former scorer, holy shit, this is something unprecedented. And then even I was listening to the Dallas Mavericks broadcast, and they were jocking the shit out of him. They said, hey, don't know necessarily what you do here. This is what a real scorer does, a bona fide superstar scorer. And it's just super cool to see. And we had different, going back to the edginess of the game, KD trying to whip away the ball from Luka was very necessary, because motherfucking Luka was being a bitch. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be that guy, but holding on to the rock when he was, guess what? Arguing with the call. I watched Mavericks games throughout the year.
Luka arguing a call?
Dog, I watch Mavericks games quite often throughout the year, and I don't know if it was just because it was with the Suns or I'm not paying attention as much, but this man was complaining about absolutely fucking everything, and I know that's been an issue. Jason Kidd's talked about it, coaching Luka and trying to make a point of emphasis, but holy shit, he was just going in the whole game. And then shout out to our guy Kenneth Rowe. We want to get him on the pod, to talk about the experience getting kicked out due to, Luka's word. But the world deserves to hear our guy's story, and I don't want to dox him, but he is from the Phoenix area and now in Dallas. So, if any of y'all know our guy Kenneth Rowe, please hit us up, find contact for him. But was there anything else? What else did you see from this game? Numbers-wise, you got any cool numbers for us?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. Durant and Beal gave in some bit of assistance with Booker on this one. 12 points from KD, 4 for 10 from the field. I think he recognized how hot Booker was and was just like, hey, we're just going to keep feeding the ball through him. Beal tacked on 20 points, so a solid outing from him. I did feel, Kevin went cold after a back-to-back 40 bombs for himself, but that happens in the NBA. Like, he's not going to score 40 every night. That's just unreasonable. Yeah. But that's just why it pays to have all of these three guys, because they can all explode on any given night and be our leading scorer. It may not be the most sustainable thing in the world, but it's a super fun ride.
And I do want to add on something onto that. I feel like this is one of the first games that a lot of people were watching where you actually got to see exactly what you thought was going to happen in the preseason. I mean, there were multiple times where Devin Booker had to go ahead and get double teamed, swing, and KD open in the corner for three. I'll take that every day of the week. Swing, Grayson Allen open for three. I'll take that any day of the week. And then you got Bradley Beal cutting, fucking posterizing people all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not opposed. Me and you talked about it in the text thread, but how much of a relief is it to see this guy go ahead and yam on somebody?
Yeah, and it's great when he's playing downhill, because he does bring, like, Booker and KD are both more side to side scorers in terms of their shiftiness and how they get to the bucket. But Bradley Beal just kind of took what he learned from all those years playing with John Wall and was just tacking downhill, and that just gives us a great variable to throw at other teams when we don't know how these guys are going to get at you. So the Suns were able to cap their 7-game streak with this one. It really felt like a tone setter after that Christmas Day game. Like, the team had really set a goal to climb back up in the standings before their All-Star break. It seems like we're seeing a whole new level of effort on defense. There's still plenty of miscues where on fast breaks we aren't matched up as well, not talking super great. and we still have those mental lapses. Like we had 15 turnovers and 20 fouls in this game, which isn't phenomenal. But we were just dominant in the second half and specifically in that third quarter, and really just kind of kept it going. And it helps when Luka is kind of struggling from the field. He was 11 for 24, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. So he's going to put up a lot of numbers, but we were able to just contain him. And I thought Grayson did a pretty honorable job against him as well. It's just Luka's just so strong and so crafty with how he's going to score.
Yeah, and we're talking about Luka Doncic. I mean, a generational talent. As much as I'm a Suns fan, I obviously recognize how fucking good this guy is. It's really annoying to see people bitch about it. I know we're talking about people's opinions, but when people were talking about, why is Grayson Allen on Luka Doncic? Motherfucker, who do you want to put on him?
Yeah, who else? Literally who? Because I don't want Booker on him. I don't want Booker wasting the energy guarding him. Same with Kevin Durant. Bradley Beal flat out can't guard him, so I just wouldn't like to see that. Yeah. No disrespect, but he just can't. So yeah, throw Grayson on him. When Okogie gets in the game, throw him on him. If we want to throw somebody bigger, I don't know, if we throw Metu or KBD on him every now and then. Yep. But I was fine with the effort on that end. And that's the final number to really put a stamp on what this game was. But the Suns had an offensive rating of 134 in this game. So like that kind of historic number is just, we could put that up on any given night, and we're just going to keep climbing those offensive rankings in the league. And it feels like we're really clicking things into gear right now.
I hear you, absolutely. So let's go ahead and transition into the game that ended our 7-game win streak, which is going to be against the Indiana Pacers in Indy, 133-131. And TJ, this was a game that we had, and I know we had a stretch, a shit ton of games. Not giving any excuses to the Suns necessarily to losing this, as we did have our big three play, but they had no Tyrese Halliburton. What were some standout key points for you in this game?
We just could not get a stop when it mattered the most. We lose the second half by a total of 10 points, and we had plenty of opportunities to just put them away, even in the first half with like Booker on fire, but we just couldn't extend that lead enough. Like they play so fast, and they're going to push the pace that they could catch us sleeping in points. And then obviously the story of the game, everybody knows it, but it was just the offensive rebounds we let up. We give up 21 offensive rebounds to only 7 on our end. That just leads to way too many second chance opportunities. And that was just a really big frustrating point. That's what we'd like to see with Nurkic kind of step it up and just control the defensive glass. But he maybe doesn't have the athleticism, especially with the amount of threes that the Pacers are going to shoot and the jumpers. Those can lead to long rebounds, which are more likely to go to the offense. So that part was really tough. But then, of course, I mean, we have to talk about Booker finishing with 62 points, right?
27 in the first quarter?
29 in the first quarter, I believe.
29. Whew.
Yeah,
Holy
and
shit.
It was just a masterclass from him. Jumpers, attacking the rim, knocking down threes. He honestly left. I think he could have scored 70 in this game very easily. Just when somebody's gonna go for 70, like we saw Luka go for 73 last night as well, which is kind of crazy in itself. You have to have some of those just crazy lucky shots go in. Like he had a couple of misses on some and one opportunities that really would have changed things, just turning the 2-point opportunities into 3 points there. Yep. And he very clearly has a deal with the devil to never hit more than 6 threes. Like he just 6 is the absolute most. My dad and I were actually talking about it because he hit, what was it, in the first half he had already hit 5 threes, right? And then early in the third quarter at one point, he gets the swing over to him, but there's like a foul off the ball, and he shoots the 3 after the buzzer, and it hits 6. And I was just like, that brought it up with me and my dad. I was like, damn it. I was like, that was his 6th. I was like, I know it didn't count, but it's going to like kind of be stuck. It's going to break it. And then I thought, hey, maybe it'll like glitch the matrix out, and maybe he'll be able to get 7 because his whatever. Nope. So he hits one more, and then my dad had even said, he's like, watch, even if Suns are down 2, you almost want Booker to just shoot the 2 anyway because you know he's not going to hit the 3. And that's exactly how the game ended up. Yeah. So I just thought that was funny, laughing with him talking about it before we even recorded this morning. So just some points got left on the board, but 62 is absolutely insane. 37 points in the first half. Like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, poor guy has a 70-point loss and a 60-point loss under his belt now. Fucking poor Devin Booker. I did want to look at the Pacers side of things for a little bit. Benedict Mathurin really came in and made his mark on this game, it felt like. I mean, even in that fourth quarter, he had a lot of big-time buckets. Just he's really got an NBA body being a young guy. You know, the dude from U of A just came in, hit some jumpers, attacked the rim super hard. I was really impressed with how he was looking.
Same with Andrew Nembhard, right? 6 points in that fourth quarter. Mathurin, like you mentioned, he had 7 in that quarter. So they were just very hard to guard, getting downhill. In the fourth, Miles Turner and Buddy Hield didn't even play, which theoretically you'd say those are their best 2 players. Obi Toppin, I just love the way Obi Toppin plays his game of basketball. That between the legs dunk that he had, just keeping the Blake Griffin legacy alive. Obviously, he has the game winner as well with 3 seconds left on the clock. So the next thing I did want to run through is just kind of how this game closed and where I think we really lost it. So it really starts with a minute left. We're tied up after I want to say Andrew Nembhard, or we're down 2 or something. It's a close game with a minute left. And I understand the clock aspect. Eric Gordon gets it swung over to him with like 10 to 8 seconds left on the shot clock and decides to not shoot the wide open 3 and just give it right back to Kevin Durant, who ends up taking an off-balance fadeaway in the paint. So that was really annoying, especially from a guy who's talked about needing more touches. I just let it fly. There's a minute left. We know that this Pacers team is still going to play fast even down the stretch. So we're going to get more possessions. And that was the best look that we could have got. Like an Eric Gordon wide open 3 is still better than a Kevin Durant, guarded by 2 guys falling away in the paint. We end up getting an offensive rebound off that. Ball goes out of bounds or something. And then Book ends up hitting a mid-range to put us up 2. Coming back down, Nembhard just takes Grayson straight to the rack. So 45 seconds left. We're tied back up at 131 to 131. KD misses a 3 on that next possession off of really good ball movement. We got a look that we would always take. It just kind of stinks. Next possession coming down, Book guarding Siakam, and Siakam just like slips and kind of loses the ball. Beal gets hit in the face again after taking that rough elbow by Miles Turner, but then gets hit again by Siakam and just kind of gives up on the play when he gets hurt. And I know you get smacked in the face, it does hurt, but it's no excuse to run outside the 3-point line when the game is on the line at this point, and when we just needed more bodies in the paint. We end up we give up 3 offensive rebounds then, with Pascal trying to tip it back in on his own miss, and then Obi Toppin just gets it in and hits the layup to win with 3 seconds left. And then to finish out the game, Booker slips on that inbounds pass. I don't know what the hell's going on in Indiana, but you see people slip on that court all the fucking time, specifically on that midcourt logo. So that seems just like some real sketchy shit going on. And then Booker just ends up having to throw up a prayer. He maybe got fouled on that play. Who really knows? It wasn't very clear enough. We'll see about the last 2-minute report when it comes out. And then the most frustrating part, the Pacers got no fouls called on them in the fourth, which like you just can't tell me they were that much more disciplined than us defensively. Like they were tackling our guys basically, and we just weren't getting any calls.
And to add on to that point, I'm not sure how the numbers would back up this, but they were one of the highest fouling rate teams in the entire league at the beginning of the year.
Keep going. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with you. I think that there was, some of the bigger issues that you had already touched on a little bit was the offensive rebounds. And I know Nurkic getting out of the game with his thumb injury wasn't ideal in terms of that aspect, but Drew Eubanks was trying as hard as he could. But like I said, sometimes we got to get our guards crashing a little harder because it's not going to do good against a 3-point shooting team like this with the long boards.
No, yeah, but you're exactly right. The Pacers, they averaged the most fouls in the league. And the third most fouls specifically in the fourth quarter. And for them to just not get any, the way that they just play like chickens with their heads cut off on that end and are just I thought that part was ridiculous. I don't like to be one of the guys that like blames things on the refs, especially when the Pacers shot 20 more shots than us this game, specifically off those offensive rebounds. But that doesn't help anything. We shot better percentages than them, but it doesn't matter when they get those 21 offensive rebounds and 84 points in the paint. You're not gonna win a baseball game if a team gets 20 more at bats than you. Like, it's just setting yourself up for failure, and that's kind of what we did tonight or last night.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. TJ, to wrap up this Suns section of the pod, can you go ahead and give us a grade for how you're feeling? I know last time we talked, it was at a D- or at a D?
As far as the season to that point, yes.
The season. No, yes.
I would say now, as we climb up to, we're sixth in the standings now, so out of the play-in. It does seem like we're on an upward trajectory, so I would definitely bump that up to maybe like a C+ as far as where we want to be at the end of the season, but we're moving the right direction. This stretch was absolutely phenomenal and just like a really fun watching experience.
I agree. This team chemistry is looking sexy. I'm going to go as far as say a B. If we do trade for Miles Bridges, it will go down to like a D plus for me. Because why the fuck are we ruining chemistry? Why are we getting a goober like that on the team? Just flat out. I mean,
and
I know
he's also people are overrating who he is as a player anyway. Even if he threw away the other side stuff, like what does he change? Yeah.
He's in Charlotte. Let's calm down, everybody. And there's a reason. He still has case open right now. There's a reason other teams aren't looking for him at the moment.
Exactly.
But that's going to go ahead and wrap up the Suns section of the pod. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the Doc Rivers being the new coach of the Milwaukee Bucks and just a little bit of all-star notes. Coming up next. You give me Bulgarian vibes. And we are back. And man, Doc Rivers now has a job. I mean, he already had 4 other jobs before, working for the Ringer and a broadcaster and whatever the fuck else he can get his hands on with basketball. But he's now the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. He has officially not had his first game with the Milwaukee Bucks. They've had their assistants go ahead and step up for these last couple, but he'll definitely be bringing in his crew, get them set up. TJ, first initial thoughts. What are you thinking?
I like the hire. I've always been a fan of Doc Rivers. I know people give him so much shit for, some blown playoff leads, but his teams have always had some level of dysfunction that I wouldn't even put on him as the point of blame. Like with those Lob City teams, like CP3 and Blake just ended up hating each other by the time that was over, and you're just not, when your 2 best players are that at odds with each other, that's just not going to work.
And CP3's hamstring and his hand and Blake's knees, like that's not on him.
No, not at all. Kawhi and PG, when he was coaching them, they just couldn't stay healthy. That was just kind of an unfair thing on him as well, where like when he was coaching that the team with Lou Williams and Pat Bev that took that Warriors team to 6 games in the first round, like that's an excellent showing, I think, and shows why he's such a great coach. It's tough to jump into mid-season, but I think he has the chops and the respect to have the guys buy in. Like he walks in with his ring on, and people know like they're going to listen to Doc Rivers. It's going to start on the defensive end with them. They're currently 19th in defense, and I think that's what they're bringing him in for, to bring up on that end, because the offense is really going to take care of itself. But I like the hire. I like Doc. I think the Bucks, they improved their chances to win a title by adding him.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like you said, just talking about the midseason stuff, I wonder if that's going to go ahead and be an issue. Doc's traditionally had pretty good defenses, but just going back to some of the downfalls, as a lot of people like to point to with Doc. I mean, with that Embiid and Harden team, we've seen, regardless of who the coach is, they're not able to, get past the second round.
Harden's going to harden. Harden's going to harden. You can't put that on Doc.
Harden's going to harden. And we've seen Embiid just drastically, his production just decrease in the playoffs. I don't think that's necessarily on Doc either. I mean, we saw it with, regardless of who you put in there, it just hasn't worked. But I do have high hopes for this team. I think it's a little funny. People aren't necessarily talking about, I mean, the dialogue around players having too much power has been going around the circle, but I feel like a lot of people haven't really dogged on Giannis, for just being completely out, even though he's the guy that just absolutely advocated to get him as the head coach. But, it is what it is at the end of the day. I was a little shocked. I think that is the best record for a rookie head coach to go ahead and get fired. I mean, we saw David Blatt.
I think David Blatt, but that was his second year, right?
That was a
very similar record, though.
Yep. So, I mean, my guy's just a little confused. He's like, hey, not sure what else you want me to do. I understand I do have Dame Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, but shit, we're in the second seed. Don't know what else to tell you. But, those are all just little thoughts that I wanted to put out there. Just thought we should address it. And then going into the all-star starters, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about it. This is a great opportunity to tell everybody that TJ and Dash know ball. Because while this wasn't the hardest list in the world to predict, I mean, it still feels nice knowing that, like, we're right. I mean, you can start off, TJ.
We're tapped in.
Yeah, we're tapped in. And TJ, start it off for us, talking about the West starters and how people are unnecessarily tripping about the whole Shea versus Steph thing.
Yeah, this one is honestly not close to me at all. Like, yeah. I voted. I wasn't a daily voter for the fan vote, but like when I did remember, like I opened the app up and saw the reminder, I'd go in, and SGA was pretty much always on my ballot to an extent. Sometimes I would, obviously I would throw Booker in there as well. But SGA over Steph is just not close. SGA is at 31 points, 5.6 assists, 6.4 rebound, or 5.6 rebounds, 6.4 assists. Excuse me. They're the best record. They have the best record in the West right now, second best in the league. Like, that team needs an all-star starter. It doesn't make sense for them to not. It's just the high level that they play at. I think he's the definitive best point guard in the league right now. Give me him over Luka or Steph or Dame or Brunson, Halliburton, anybody. I just think he's the craftiest. I think he's the best teammate. I think his guys like really buy into what he does and his leadership style. And then overall, like Steph is just struggling this year. I think in the last few weeks he's had multiple games with less than 10 points. He's averaging 26, 4, and 4.9. Still shooting 44, 40, and 92. So he's still phenomenal, of course, but their team's 19 and 23, and they're 2 spots outside of the play-in. Like, they don't deserve an all-star starter. They don't deserve an all-star at all, period. But he'll most likely get in as a reserve just because of the name recognition and the respect that he still garners across the league. But it's not close to me. And the fact that people want Steph, like, you're just a Warriors homer, or you don't watch the Thunder.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a point that I was going to bring up. We kind of talked about it in our text, but you apparently don't watch any OKC games or just keep up with the league, period, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a top 3 MVP candidate at the moment, or top 4 depending on how you feel about Giannis. But I absolutely think that this was just a no-brainer. Shai's been putting in work. Steph, obviously we got to recognize that he is being triple, quadruple teamed at points because you see guys like Wiggins and Thompson, and Draymond hasn't been an offensive factor in quite some time. But these guys are just straight up not winning games, and like I said, it's not necessarily Steph's fault. But we look at the numbers. You got to make shit happen, and he's not making shit happen at the moment.
And you have to give credit where it's due, and that is due for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's like just starting his prime here, so he's going to be a staple in this All-Star game for years to come, I would imagine. And yeah, it's tough for Steph. I'm not the biggest Steph fan in the world, just not really a big fan of that play style at the end of the day, no matter how elite it is. But I just love everything about SGA.
Yeah, and just a last little point with the SGA. That was funny the other day when we were looking at his age, and we were just absolutely shocked to see how young this man is. He's 25 or 26, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I already forgot.
Yeah, but that guy is a fucking hooper, and I'm super excited to see the rest of his future and what he's going to bring to the league.
Yeah, he turns 26 in like 100 some days, so he is like he's amazing,
phenomenal. But that brings us over to the East, where people were very, very surprised. I saw a lot of people talking shit that Dame was out there in the starting in the East over Brunson or Mitchell, and I personally, I'll be honest with the fans, would not have Dame as the starter. But with all the facts I laid out, it kind of only made sense. The fan vote, he kind of dominated in. I think the respect factor plays a role considering he's a top 75 guy in a team that's second in the East. But when we do compare the numbers, we got Dame about 25 points, over 6.5 assists, and 4 boards a game. That's not any kind of scrub numbers. Yeah.
Can I say something about that with Dame too? I thought it was really funny because those are almost identical to his career averages. Like 25 points, 4 rebounds, 6 point some assists. Like he's right on. He's having an average season for Damian Lillard.
Yeah, he's on par, and he's playing with a higher usage guy in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and a guy who's a top 3 player in the league. I mean, what do you expect? But and then when we're looking over for the other guys, there's Brunson with 26.5, almost 4 rebounds and 6.5 assists. But then there's Donovan Mitchell with almost 28 points, 6 assists, and 5.5 boards. Now look. Like I said, I did predict Dame to be in that guard spot. But I think you might not agree with this, TJ, I would put D. Mitch on my personal list for the All-Star game. Because, winning in the scoring department, his team's having a better record than Brunson's. Doing it with injuries on his squad. And, this will go into your point, the athleticism will look great for the All-Star game, would it not?
Okay. No, I'll give you that part. I'll give you that point of it. But my counterpoint to that is, like, part of the All-Star game is the vibes factor, and it's just been bad vibes in Cleveland all season. And I think even with this winning streak, it did come on the heels of a lot of injuries and, like, Jared Allen dominating, Darius Garland playing really well. So I don't totally buy it. I probably would go with Dame anyway. I hear the critiques on it, but this is going to be Dame's first All-Star start. So I think he did just deserve one at one point or another, although it does feel like I don't know if you watch the show. Do you ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Like, that show?
Yeah, with David DeVito.
So it's like this year, they just got like invited to the Emmys for like the first time, and it's probably the worst season in the TV show's history. It's just finally at the point where they have the respect to get there. And like Dame, Steph Curry was his biggest problem in starting in these All-Star games. Like he just wasn't going to beat that guy. And so I think credit to him finally getting one. He is one of the best players in the league still. he's super fun in All-Star games as well. I know we always see him go back and forth shooting those like logo threes, so that'll be a blast for the kids watching. And Brunson, he's absolutely gonna make the All-Star team. I think it's not a problem that he's not necessarily a there just hasn't been enough mainstream noise from Brunson outside of like those Becky Hammon comments, which really was kind of a destructive argument for Jalen Brunson. And I agreed with Becky Hammon as well. Like she was right, but going back to the vibes thing, I don't think Jalen Brunson had that on his side necessarily.
No, definitely understand. And it goes back to the tweet you sent me. I mean, the New Yorkers were sad that they couldn't, vote in Jalen Brunson. They got that big old crowd. But, man, you guys voted in Giuliani. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys are not great at voting.
Not good at voting. Not good at it.
Not good at voting, just flat out. There was a point that you brought up I kind of wanted to just touch on just real quick before we do jump into the last section of the All-Star. Is just Steph absolutely fucked this guy up. I mean, if they didn't play in the same timeline or in the same, conference, I mean, we go ahead and we probably see Damian Lillard make a few more first-team All-NBAs, but Steph was just fucking him up in that department, the All-Star starters, and it's just funny to see the tides kind of shifting, with Dame always being in that play that, I guess the plan hasn't existed always, but being in that lower seeding, getting swept by the Warriors, whether it be in the first or second round, and,
conference finals.
Conference finals, we've seen it before, and it's cool. Who would have thought the timeline would be Giannis Antetokounmpo and Dame Lillard killing it in the East and Steph not even being in the play-in.
Yeah, no, my final point on the Dame Brunson debate is I just still think there's a case to you'd rather have Dame on your team than Brunson at the end of the day with like the clutch shot making. They're basically equals on defense as far as that goes. So it's the same reason why I would take SGA over Steph. I just think he's flat out better in 2024, and that's kind of where I'm at with Dame and Brunson right now.
I hear you. And then we're going over to, should Devin Booker be a lock for the West wildcard spot? And that is absolutely fucking yes. Let me go ahead and list off the people that are probably going to be locks. That are going to be locks. We got Steph, Ant, Fox, Kawhi, PG, AD, and for that last spot, it has to be the guy who's averaging 28, 7, and 5. And that's Devin Armani Booker. And TJ, I just want to say, how crazy is it and how talented is the league that this guy can barely make it into the All-Star game, but in the past, those are MVP numbers. We've seen guys have worse numbers win MVPs, and I understand pace, change the eras, but regardless, 28, 7, and 5 is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I still think he's a top 10 guy in the league flat out. He's clearly the best shooting guard still. I know Anthony Edwards was making a case early on in the year, but he's just not quite there yet. He's really playing with an edge right now, too. I think we saw that specifically last night against the Pacers and that other game against the Mavs, where he's just going on a tear to really prove himself as an all-star. I think it's a travesty if he doesn't make it. I don't think there's a real case for anybody else to be over him. Even I know you mentioned Anthony Davis technically ahead of him. I think Book's having a better season than him, especially considering the standings and the injuries that they've dealt with. So Book has to be in there, and if he's not, we got to riot.
No, I'm all for it there. I saw some lists that were leaving off Devin Booker that had Rudy Gobert over him, and that was just absolutely fraudulent. I mean, guys, I put Lauri Markkanen was on some list over him. Thought that was absolutely ridiculous. You see the impact with winning. You see the fun factor. He's beating out for those guys, and I know everybody loves to see the white guy that likes to shoot threes and dunk the ball like Lauri Markkanen, but this is Devin Armani Booker, a guy that we saw hit fucking 34 mid-range jumpers against the Dallas Mavericks recently. And I'll tell you right now, the tween guys, like you said, they love that shit. And some tween guys are definitely going to be watching that All-Star game. Any other thoughts for the All-Star game?
No, I'm just looking forward to it. The reserves, I think, get announced at the end of this week. So we'll see where that is. Maybe Tuesday we'll jump on with kind of our full predictions there. But just super excited. It's always a fun stretch of the year. Trade rumors are just a buzz everywhere right now. So we'll see what happens.
Perfect. All right, that wraps up that section. And coming up next, we got Dash's ideal playoff matchups for the upcoming playoffs. No, it's a little early, but I think it's time to talk about it. Coming up next.
I wish I was Bulgarian. I don't have to deal with your bitch ass.
And we're back. We're talking about ideal playoff matchups. And I know we just passed the halfway season, not even at the All-Star break yet, but I thought this would be fun. We've seen quite a few things that we've enjoyed from teams. And, with theoreticals, fuck injuries. Let's go ahead and do the theoreticals before the injuries because that just makes shit not fun. So we're starting off in the East. And TJ, how would you feel about a 1-seeded Celtics versus the 8th-seeded Magic? We got the defense, we got the explosive offense, we got the young guys versus the young guys who are successful already up to this point. How are you feeling?
Probably a sweep, But
sweep? You don't think Magic could take a game from him?
No, I don't think so. I just saw the Magic play in person against the Hawks, and they couldn't buy a bucket against that shitty Hawks defense. And so I don't know what they're going to do against the Celtics, who are top 3 in defensive rating right now. Like you said, the Magic, they are elite in their own right on defense, but that offense just cannot get clicking sometimes. I think we could give them some close games, but like I could also see Boston putting them away by like 25 some nights when they're just kind of cooking on the offensive end. Boston's
especially from behind the arc.
Yeah, they're 2-1 versus Orlando this year already. It'll be really interesting to see Paolo and Franz for their first time in the playoffs, just because, and that matchup is very interesting. But, it would take some heroics for offensive performances out of those two guys specifically to steal one against this like elite Celtics team.
Okay. Yep. We got the 1-8 matchup. So going to the 2 versus 7. And this is probably my second favorite of the entire, playoff matchup. Or I don't know, probably third. We got the Bucks versus the Pacers. And we've seen multiple times that these teams have had some beef going back and forth. The Pacers have been able to steal some games, even after Tyrese Halliburton stealing Dame's celebration and Dame acting like he's going to go ahead and, hey, when your time comes, don't keep the same energy, buddy. And decided to put up a stinker. So I don't know if Indiana has the recipe to go against Damian Lillard, but how enjoyable would you view this matchup?
Oh, that's a 10 out of 10 first round matchup, just because of, like you said, the history with these two teams, the whole Giannis not getting the game ball, the in-season tournament junk. Like these teams are really at each other's throats, and I just love the way that the Pacers kind of contrast their play style against the Bucks. They're just going to be going and going and going, which maybe kind of plays into Giannis's hands a little bit. Like we've seen him put up crazy numbers against that team. They just don't really have anybody to stop him. But now you add Siakam into that mix, and they got some more offensive firepower to really steal a couple of games, I think. So that could be go into 6 games. I would still obviously take the Bucks in that series. They're just better top to bottom. But hey, who knows? Who knows? Especially last year we saw the Bucks drop it to the Heat after Giannis gets hurt. So anything can happen, especially with that just explosive Pacers offense.
So we're giving that a 10 out of 10 on the enjoyability factor?
That's it. Yeah, that's a 10 out of 10. I'm watching every game of that series, especially if Halliburton's going, if Giannis is going. Like, it's beautiful.
Hey, don't let the Bucks go to 3-1. You got that guy Doc Rivers. No, I'm playing. I'm not going to do that. All right, and then we got the 3-seeded 76ers versus the 6-seeded Miami Heat. Okay, so we got to go ahead and address the issue. Joel Embiid dropping 10 points with his averages when he goes into the postseason. We got to see what Tyrese Maxey is all about as the official set-in-stone second option. And then we got the Miami Heat, who we've seen time and time again just absolutely spoil contenders, real deal favorites, odds to go ahead and win the whole entire finals. How enjoyable would you view this experience?
That would be another really good one, just because of the questions that are still up in the air about the Sixers team. The Heat definitely have all the answers as far as when we get down to the playoff stretch. And we haven't even really talked about Terry Rozier going there and just the extra offense that he's going to provide. He's probably as close to the next best option to getting Dame at this point in the season, and they had to give up way less to bring him in. So I think that's a really interesting wrinkle, and think that he could pop off for 40 points in a playoff game. We've seen it before when he was in Boston. So I would absolutely love it. Again, still think the Heat, the Sixers would take care of business at the end of the day, at least you hope. If you're a Sixers fan, if you're an Embiid fan, and he could just still kind of punish them inside. But Jimmy brings something extra against the Sixers. The whole, y'all chose Tobias Harris over me, like that
over me.
That bad blood is still very much there, and that could definitely go to 7.
So TJ, yeah, I mean, like you said, you want the Sixers to win this series and go ahead and take care of business. But if you had to put money on it, honestly, who would you pick in the series?
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking Joel Embiid. Like, if I had to pick right now, and obviously right now the Heat are technically the 7 seed right now with the Pacers at 6, but this is kind of predicting what the best matchups would be. And yeah, it would be, especially if it came down to a game 7, like I would take the Heat in that game.
Yeah, okay. I heard that. I think it's going to go down to the Heat if I had to put money on it. Really enjoy what I see from Jaime Jaquez. I know he's going to be a rookie year.
Love
we'll see how
Jaime
much
Jaquez.
He has. Woo! The 2 foot, the pump
He's a
fakes.
pro. He is a pro's pro. Like, just gets in there, does his job.
And I don't want to be the Heat culture guy, but it seemed like this was the perfect scenario for him, the perfect timeline for him, like the opposite of like who was it? Who was the guy that was always high? That was the second pick in the draft, like in 2011, Beasley.
Oh yeah. You talking about Michael Beasley?
Yeah, Michael Beasley, my guy.
Yeah.
I still stand on the hill that he had the worst timeline for where he could have been, or maybe he's just a pothead who didn't want to go ahead and hoop. But anyway, with this Sixers versus Heat matchup, I would personally put money on the Heat. I do think that the Terry Rozier, the fit hasn't absolutely looked amazing yet, but they haven't been healthy yet. They dropped their first 2 games with him on the squad, but still a ton of time for them to go ahead and mesh and gel. I'm going to go ahead and put money on the Heat. Love me some Jimmy Buckets. Going in for the last matchup, it's going to be the 5-seeded Knicks versus the 4th-seeded Cavs. And we saw it last year. We've seen Jarrett, Wilt Chamberlain, Allen go ahead and be fucking amazing these stretch of games without Evan Mobley, but the lights, in his own words, were too bright for him at the moment. And I do love how the Knicks go out and just, Julius Randle came out and played with an edge in that series. I do think that, we've seen an uptick from Jalen Brunson, even though he had an amazing playoff series. And unfortunately, Candace Parker kind of got dogged out by the media when she said that Jalen Brunson had an awful second round, even though he was absolutely torching. But what would you think about this matchup? Are you okay with a rematch, or would you like to see something else?
Yeah, no, I think it'd be fun. It's a good chance for the Cavs to maybe prove that they aren't who they were that last year's series. I do think the problem is, though, that since last year the Knicks have improved by adding OG Anunoby, and the Cavs just seem to be in the same place. They're maybe just a regular season team that's not really built to last in the playoffs. Since we haven't seen Mobley in so long, I just don't know what he's even going to bring when he gets back on the offensive end. And it just kind of comes down to, like, who would you want, like, as just like top level best players on the court? Is it going to be Brunson or Mitchell? I would probably lean Brunson at this point, just the way you can kind of orchestrate that whole offense and lift his teammates. And so far in the season, they're 1-1 against each other, so no clear signs there. I would go with the Knicks in this series again, namely because of OG Anunoby, and I think he could do a real good job guarding Mitchell.
Ooh, I'm super excited. Okay, so where would you rate that on a viewability and enjoyability scale?
Oh, that's got to be like 7 out of 10. Like really solid playoff matchup given the history, and just I think most people do want the Knicks to kind of make some noise. It's just kind of fun. They're fun when the Knicks are good. It's fun when Madison Square Garden's jumping. So we'll see, and maybe it'll end up Donovan Mitchell torches them, and he's just their new Trae Young.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Now we're hopping over to the west side of things. We got the 1st-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Los Angeles Lakers. We got the new Bucks versus the old Bucks going at it. We see a team that's been absolutely dominant all throughout the regular season. And we have the Los Angeles Lakers, who we've seen before go ahead. I mean, even looking at last year being the 7th seed and making it to the Western Conference Finals. If they can get in there, they can still be a scary team. At the end of the day, it's LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been the most healthy player in the last year, which is absolutely insane. Never thought you would hear that. What are your first initial thoughts here? Do you think this would be an enjoyable viewing experience? Do you think it's going to be a close series? Do you think OKC just runs away with it?
I think with LeBron, you always have to err on the side of it being close from the Lakers side. It'll be really fun from a star standpoint, just with SGA, J-Dub, and Chet taking on the old guard in LeBron and Anthony Davis. So OKC, I would probably give the edge to them, just the way they've been playing and clicking. The problem is going to be just in the paint. If Anthony Davis can just dominate Chet down low, that would be a real tough matchup for them. But Chet's very disciplined on defense and is going to hold his own as best as he can. I think that could be a 6 or a 7 game series, just given the experience that the Lakers are going to bring. But I also love the look that they can give LeBron with Lou Dort on him. Like, Lou Dort he's like a pit bull on defense and just going to get into anybody. Yep. So I think that kind of helps him out as well. And who knows if OKC makes another move before the playoffs. I know a lot of people have talked about bringing in another big center like Nick Claxton. So we'll see what happens. I would definitely be tuned into this series, mostly because I think the Thunder are just the most fun team to watch right now.
Just period, yeah. And then I just wanted to bring up how it feels kind of, historical. History repeats itself. We got the 2012 OKC Thunders, the young and upcoming guys against the older Kobe Bryant going ahead and taking over and taking their squad all the way to the finals. It'd be super interesting if we saw something similar happen in that fashion. Where are you ranking this on the 1 out of 10 enjoyability?
Oh, that's like an 8 or a 9 for me. Just in terms of the implications in the West, just being a Suns fan, I know we just care more about what's going on in the Western Conference anyway. And I'm a huge Thunder fan. As far as like I said it before, they're probably my second favorite team in the league, just kind of historically. And we'll definitely be pulling them to just put the Lakers away, because I just love seeing Lakers fans eat their own tears.
I'm right there with you. All right. So we got probably the least enjoyable viewing experience, but I just want to be realistic. I don't think the team that's being left off this list is going to make it to the playoffs. And the team that I'm not having on here is the New Orleans Pelicans. So it's going to be Timberwolves versus the Sacramento Kings. This not a ton to look at right here. I mean, we got the best defense versus a really explosive offense, so it's cool in that aspect. But I do think they have the better top end talent. Unfortunately, they got Anthony Edwards, who is better than De'Aaron Fox, in my own opinion. Love me some De'Aaron Fox. People like to argue if Domantas Sabonis is actually that guy, but it's kind of, brought down once you realize that Domantas Sabonis is not an excellent three-point shooter, and they have Rudy Gobert to stop him at the rim. And as we know, Domantas Sabonis' style of play is very, get down low, make the passes, use his body to his advantage. But Rudy Gobert is a big motherfucker, regardless of what you want to say. He's got that 7 foot and some change, 7'6", 7'7" wingspan. That's really going to affect his style of play. What are you thinking? Or do you think that the Kings' three-point shooting is going to be able to, draw out the bigs and go ahead and give them the win in the series?
Yeah, I think that's really where the game is going to, the series is going to be won, is that Sabonis versus Gobert matchup. If Sabonis can still be productive even with that guy on him, I don't know how much I would believe in that, but it is, like you mentioned, an unstoppable force versus an immovable object with the offense versus defense here. They both kind of contrast each other's styles very, very, very well, and just kind of polar opposites in that regard. So I have seen the Minnesota look really bad on offense for stretches, but I've seen the Kings look probably even worse on defense for points.
Yeah.
So it is just kind of going to be a wild kind of up and down series. I was glad you didn't choose the Timberwolves versus the Pelicans, because that series would have some 94-89 game, just some bullshit. But I would go with the Wolves in that series as well. But the Kings would give them a run for the money. I could see that going 5 or 6 games.
All right, and then viewability?
Probably a 6, all things considered. I'm going to tap in because I love watching Anthony Edwards play, and we'll just want to see if he elevates himself for the playoffs. But in terms of grander implications on title favorites, I just don't think it's really there.
Heard that. And then we got the next one, which is very juicy. Probably our favorite. Everybody's going to be tuned in to watch this specific series, and that's the Phoenix Suns versus the Dallas Mavericks. We've already seen the series get chippy in itself. We've yet to see a fully healthy squad for both teams. We haven't even seen Kyrie Irving play against the Suns this year. How do you think this matchup would go?
I think I would be very happy if the Suns could draw the Mavericks in round 1. I just think our top to bottom talent is just going to outplay them across the board. Of course, Luka still does have to scare you, and just kind of the nightmares he's given Suns fans over the last few years. But we saw it the other night where we can handle them by 23 points, and I would hope that would kind of continue. Obviously, not a real good answer for anybody to guard Luka, but nobody really has one of those guys except for maybe the Thunder, like I mentioned earlier with Lou Dort. But I would take the Suns in that series. I would be very happy. I don't think they aren't better than us in any one way that I think really puts fear in your heart.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm surprised that I didn't necessarily touch on this, and I know this is not breaking news, but Luka Doncic's defense is just non-existent, and that transferred over to the playoffs. Obviously, he exerts a ton of energy on offense, hitting step-back threes, getting to the rack, getting and ones whenever he wants.
He doesn't guard anybody, bro. He's a 0 on defense, and it's sad because with that frame, you think he at least could kind of guard up a little bit, kind of guard power forwards or something. But no, they just stick him on the worst player, and that guy's still gonna cook him.
Yeah, and he does a lot of revolving door stuff, a lot of pointing on scrambles and everything like that. You don't ever see him getting to anybody. So, I mean, I think we could really take full advantage with the 3 explosive offensive players that we do have on the squad. And then this one was kind of a reach, and maybe it's just me being a Suns fan and wanting these teams to go at each other first, just to kind of get it out of the way. But it is the Denver Nuggets versus the Los Angeles Clippers. I do think that is a very high possibility. Obviously, I'd never wish it on anybody, but I do think the Clippers might suffer an injury coming up here soon, or just some load management stuff, just guys not playing as much as they've been playing throughout the season. But the Nuggets versus Clippers, man, oh man, this is a lot of people's picks, these two people to come out of the West. So I would love to see an absolute bloodbath to go on in that first round. We got, the Jokic destroying whoever's going to be at that 5 position, whether it be Zubac or the Plum God or Daniel Tice. nice. It doesn't really matter. But then you got everybody that's going to be out on the perimeter in terms of James Harden, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. What would you see from this series? What are some things you'd look out for?
Yeah, definitely an interesting matchup. These teams kind of have some bad blood against each other too, with the Nuggets coming down 3-1 in that bubble, the bubble playoffs. So there's a little extra animosity there that I would think would hold over from past years, which makes it really fun. Like you mentioned, they're the two best teams in the West from like kind of looking forward perspective. All credit due to the Thunder and the Timberwolves, but they're just kind of young in their stage of development, where these teams are kind of more or less finished products in what they're going to be. So I would look for Jokic to just dominate in this series down low, but you can't count out Kawhi and Paul George. We saw Kawhi almost rip our hearts out last year in the playoffs, and they aren't going to have a great option to guard him. Sticking Aaron Gordon and KCP on those two guys, we'll see how it goes. Because then you still have Jamal Murray hanging out in James Harden, who we all heard about his playoff issues. Maybe now is the third option. He'll be able to feel a little bit more comfortable in just playing consistently. I would still go with the Nuggets in this series, just 1-1, given the size that they bring. But this could, again, be a 7-game series, and it's probably another 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 matchup.
Woo! I love to hear it. Barring any injuries, I think this is going to be one of the best playoff series we've had in a long time. And it seems like we keep saying that. But, man, we got some good basketball. We got some great, talented people out here in the league at the moment. TJ, any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode 21 of the Bright Now podcast?
We've got a long way to go before we get to these playoff matchups, so a lot is going to change. Definitely we'll save this to the side and see if if you got any of those predictions right with how this is going to shape up. But super excited to get this underway. The Suns are really clicking, even with that loss. Feeling really happy about where the team's at now as we head into this stretch of every other night until February 10th, right?
Yep. Until then. Hell yeah. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I really hope Tyler doesn't get clipped out right here for the part where he talks about how he really hopes that we go against the Mavericks and they bust our ass in the first round. I'd probably just, jump off the building. But thank you again so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day.